Welcome to Will's World, your will overall, powered by Third Gen Physical Therapy and Sports Science Institute.
Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to Will's World, your will overall. First and foremost, when we get started, I want to say that I missed everyone and been very busy. A lot of things have occurred, a lot of great things. I've been so busy, I just hadn't had time to do the podcast, but I've had enough people, get on me about that. So I'm just trying to make sure that in this year, we be a lot more consistent. And I'm going to try my best to manage that the best I can. But for everybody who's still here in the new year with us, man, thank you for being here. All our old listeners, thank you for staying around and waiting for us to come back. For all our new listeners, welcome. And for all the future listeners, press play, share, subscribe, like, hit the notification button, and be ready to get content, man. So, in today's episode, as you see in the title, Become Who You Admire. This particular topic was given to me by an actual client of mine, and they were speaking to something that I thought was very interesting. And what they were speaking to is not just, dress like the person you want to be and, dress for the job you want to have and all that. No, they're literally saying like, become who you admire, like literally transitioning to that person. So we're going to talk about three different pieces, right? Because I think the simplest way to view this is in this format of one, identify the person. Who is that person? Two, why do you admire them? What's different about them than anyone else? And then three, now what? What do you do now? That transition, right? So in the first piece of that, identify the person. A lot of time I think we tend to identify the wrong people because we're not really aware of what we admire. Like a lot of times, like we are admiring money, or we're admiring, the assets they have or the coolness that they display, or even the actual environment they're in, whether they're basketball players, entertainers. Maybe they're a doctor, lawyer, maybe they're not, maybe they're a nurse, maybe they're, a physical therapist, maybe they're a mom, dad, whatever. Like there's a lot of different people there that you can admire. And I think the biggest thing is identifying the correct people. Obviously, we all grew up listening to music, right? And a lot of people who make that music may be very inspiring, maybe even very exciting to see perform. But a lot of times, those are the people you admire. A lot of times, you enjoy their music. It's very, relaxing. It's very encouraging. Like I said, it's also very inspiring. But at the same time, it's not the thing that you really admire. You just enjoy. It gives you a relief or release of some kind. So identifying that person is super important because the identification process can take time or it cannot take any time at all. Maybe your spirit just draws you to the person that you admire and it's actually something legit. So let's say this. Let's say you're a basketball player, right? And you admire Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, or LeBron James, right? If you're a basketball player, for you that makes sense, right? Because those people are the things that you or have the things that you want to actually acquire at some point in time, right? Well, let's say that you admire those people, but you actually don't have any admiration for them outside of what they do on the court. So that's your admiration. So you may become a better basketball player, because you want to emulate those people, or maybe you don't because you're emulating them as far as a player on the court. But what it requires to become that person, they don't reveal or give to you. All right, you're just seeing the product. So a lot of elements of become who you admire are lost in that because you don't really know that person really, right? When I say no, I don't mean thoroughly, I mean, but you don't know their habits outside of that. Like, what do they enjoy? How do they relax? Who are their, main people, that they actually are around? Do they have a family or not? Like, what is their process of how they got to that particular point? Who is their team? Who's around them that keeps them accountable? Or are they very, introverted and lone wolf to a point where they keep themselves accountable? Because that may not be who you are. So when you're identifying that person, you're actually identifying who you are, on a spirit level, like know thyself, right? Like identifying who you are. Now, part two, I kind of spoke about it in part one, which is why do you admire them, right? What's the difference? I'm gonna say this right now. My favorite basketball players growing up, if I'm a basketball player, in this time frame right now, was Kevin Garnett and Allen Iverson. But what I admire about them is not their play style really. Um, I admire their passion and approach of how they play. And what I mean by that, relentless, never say die attitude, mentally strong, you know, willing to go against any battle, anyone, and then also they were human. Like I saw AI in the interview where he talked about, practice. And in the interview, he was speaking from a place of frustration because he just lost his best friend. So they asked him about practice, and he was coming, to terms with, his best friend leaving, dying, and having to deal with a funeral and that family situation. So it's a lot of frustration. So I saw the human side of him, and I see why he was so passionate about basketball because really that was the only place that for that 48 minutes of time he could not be you know tasked with trying to be the perfect person. He could be who he is at his core, which is a giver. Gives everything he has every time. Kevin Garnett, and the opposite of that for me was that too, was that I'm always going. If you own this, I'm on that too. you know Meaning that in life for me, if someone was on an aspect of like wanting to compete at something, then I'm competing too. If somebody's on the aspect of like, hey, we're not really competing, but we're trying to get better and grow, and this is how we're going to go about doing it. We're going to run 2 miles. Okay, great. I may run three because I want to make sure I'm growing. It was his constant, battle within himself to bring out what was underneath. So for me, the reason I admired them had nothing really to do with their style. I love AI's crossover. That was cool. That was dope. I love KG's trash talking. That was cool. But I actually identify with him. Jordan was not my favorite player, and still is not my favorite player. Like, just didn't do anything for me. Cool, great trendsetter. You know what I'm saying? I actually watched him play when I was young, so I actually saw him as not people talking. Just wasn't my type of player. Like, if you like, well, he had the wheel to do this and whatever, not really my personality in that sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not how I approach it. I feel like AI and KG is more of who I am at that time of my life, and it pushed me to get to the next growth phase, which is the transition. Within this episode, now what? Now, what did I do to harness that, to make that become a part of me so I could become more of them to be able to achieve what I wanted to achieve? And then for me, it was simple. I just found a space within my life at that point in time, and even now I do it, which is I found the space that I could take the things that made me me and what I admired about them and apply them to other aspects of my life. So, as a result of doing so, now I can transition from kid to teenager to young adult to adult to these different processes. And what you find out along that journey, you tend to change what you like, change the people that you like around you. You even sometimes go on a journey on your own, maybe the spiritual journey. You even take time to also linger more in your thoughts, with yourself, to find your quiet times to be able to make sure you're checking yourself, to make sure you're okay, but also to make sure that you're doing the things you said you would, because you will get off track sometime. But within that transition, what I pulled out, man, is that I was becoming the people I actually admired. And what I mean by that, their successes that they had was their successes, but the successes that I was having was because of my passion, my drive, my never say die attitude, my constant inner working of myself, trying my best to bring what I am inside to the surface, to be more of the person that I wanted to become. You can't become who you admire just because you associate yourself with things they wear or things they quote unquote, um, take an interest in. You have to kind of find the piece of them that actually you can adapt and say, this is what makes them that. And I think this part is why I really admire them, you know. And then from that, even with say like, say if you admired your parents also, you can take that and move that into what you do. Because me, one admiration I have for my father is that he's the hardest working man I know. Period. Dead serious. Like, and what I mean by that, we didn't have conversations here and there about everything, but I could watch just as well as I could listen. I could watch. He would do certain things, I'll just be like, man, it's been 16, 17 hours. Like, man. And I'm watching him work though. Like, man, he's still working. And it was on task or things, whatever. And it's like, wow, like that's level of work you have to do. And what I didn't realize, that was the thing I admired. Just his ability to put one foot in front of the other, right? Like, and it's things that I admire about people who I have in my life now, which is why they're in my life. So the whole purpose of this is to make sure that we drive home, become who you admire. Identify that person. Why do you admire them? And then now what? How do you transition some of those attributes into who you are? And if those really are the attributes that you need to transition into who you are to become better? Because I'm not admiring people that I'm going to go backwards. That's just stupid for me. That's just my opinion, but it's just stupid. Like I'm not gonna admire somebody I'm gonna take me backwards. That's just ridiculous. And the admiration comes from different people, different places, forms. It don't have to be one person, but whoever you do admire, you may want to actually dive into why is that the case. Man, I'm really glad to be back. I'm glad to be back in this new year. A lot has happened, and I'm really grateful. Like I can honestly say, doing this is just as therapeutic for me as it is for whoever listens. And I've enjoyed every time I've got on here and pressed record. And for everyone who has pressed play in the past, I appreciate all of those people. Hopefully, we were not too harsh, or maybe we were not harsh enough, But regardless, man, we're back, and this time we're staying. This needs to happen, The thing that I know of me is that the gifts that I've been blessed with, I have to share those gifts. And one of those gifts that I've been blessed with is the gift to inspire. And I can't keep that for myself because that's selfish, right? It's not my gift to keep. It's my gift to give, you know. And if I don't give it, I lose it because it's not mine anyway. Like I was gifted with it. So as a result of that, I have to make sure that I don't disrespect it and be grateful for it. So this is me giving, you know, And I'm hoping that, with that, man, this reaches you today in a mode of like, I need to kind of sort of, reset the button a little bit. And if it's not, you're like, hey, I'm on that right path, man, keep going. Because in order for you to get to where you want to go, you have to always transition to become the person that you admire. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, hope you have a blessed one. I'll catch you in the next one.